Yes, so lot going on, and we had a lot of varied answers on the fall survey, and I'll talk a little bit about those responses today if you didn't join us for the last couple of meetings. I'll kind of summarize the answers, and then I thought we would take some time, which we don't often do, I think, in AAUW, to answer some questions quietly, reflectively, hopefully in a journal. Hopefully you all have something to write in and something to write with or to type in or on. And I thought we would reflect on what those DEI branch survey answers mean, what they mean to us and for us and our branches, all, of course, towards improving diversity, equity, and inclusion in our individual lives and in our branches. Sorry, I do have my phone on and I'm checking notifications for my dad. So if you hear that dinging, I apologize. So we had 20 branches fill out the survey. And that was a lower response rate. I think it was about an 18% response rate. We were hoping for 30%. And we did talk about ways I could have communicated it better, but it wasn't the board to board. I sent out a separate communication, and I mentioned it at these meetings. Do all of you know whether your branch filled it out or not?
We did.
We did.
We did.
I don't know.
Our branch filled it out.
And I can share it with you to see. There's the list of branches. Give me a moment. So you can see here, I have to scroll down to see all of them, but these are the branches that filled it out. And so if you don't see your branch there, then you didn't fill it out.
Okay.
Melinda, I think we can hear you, but we can't see you, but that's okay. We'll mostly be journaling today. I'll even take myself off camera. So another reason I want us to do this journaling today, the self-reflection based on the DEI survey responses, is it goes along with the 4 pivots. The 4 pivots by Sean Ginwright is kind of unofficially our AAUW California Book of the Year.
That's the scariest part.
Um,
You're giving notes to
Juliana, are you able to mute?
often speaking for myself poorly, and then I couldn't
Yeah,
articulate.
I'm going to mute you if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. The 4 pivots by Sean Ginwright is and it's Carmen who first told me about it, Carmen and Charmin from their equity book group in the Sacramento branch. And I read it and loved it, and it became our kind of AUW California board book. Charmin got all the board members a copy. I've talked about it at these meetings, and it will actually structure our annual meeting for AUW California, our annual meeting that's virtual on Saturday, April 26th, that I hope you will all come to. But if you're familiar with the 4 pivots, the first pivot is from lens to mirror, and it talks about the importance of looking inward, being introspective, engaging in self-reflection, as painful as it can be, asking yourself the difficult questions before you can help heal other injustices going on in the world. You have to heal yourself from those injustices as well. And so I took a cue from that for what we're going to do today. So if you want to get ready to write, you all should know now whether your branch did or did not fill out a fall 2024 DEI branch survey. So take a couple of minutes to reflect on why your branch filled out this survey or why it did not. You may know right away because you're the one who filled it out, but maybe someone else filled it out. And so, yes, it's some speculation, but also some reflection. And we're not sharing our answers right away, but take some time to note down why your branch did or did not fill out this survey. Okay, so wrap up your answer to that. And the hope, of course, is that you will come back to these questions and reflect on them and perhaps write more. But we only have this hour now, so we will keep going. My next question for you, based on the fact that some of our branches said in this survey that not only do they not practice DEI because it's not important to their branch or their branch members are not interested, but some branches out of the 20 still don't seem to know what DEI is or what it means. And I encountered that this morning with a member of one of our interest groups. So my next question for you is, imagine that your branch practiced DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, just as you wish they would, just as you would like them to. So this is dreaming here, it's hypothetical. So imagine that your practice and imagine that your branch incorporated and practiced DEI just as you want. What would that look like? What would it sound like? What would it feel like? So think about it in terms of perceptions, and in terms of the sensory experience as well. What would that feel like, look like, sound like? This is for you to write down. If your branch practiced DEI just as you want it to. So take a couple of minutes with that. Okay. Wrap up your answer to that. And this should be very stream of consciousness. You don't have to share any of your answers if you don't want to. I'm not going to look at them. As I tell my students when I do this with them, this is not going to be graded. So it's a way for you to get your thoughts and feelings and ideas out. So let's do that same exercise or reflection for the national level. And this is because both in the survey and outside of the survey, I've heard AAUW California members say they're really not quite connected to DEI at the national level. And they don't quite understand the direction it's going in, what it means for them at the branch level or as individuals, or for the state. So imagine that AAUW at the national level incorporated and practiced DEI just as you want. What would that look like, sound like, or feel like, and feel like? Let's take a couple of minutes with that. Okay, so wrap up your reflection or your answer to that one. Okay, one more in this format. So AUW California has its strategic plan that we've talked about. And I think, but let's go back and make sure. Branches seem aware of it, but well, no, they don't because 60% of branches have not discussed it, 40% have. And in terms of the number of programs that align with the strategic plan, we spent quite some time discussing this in earlier meetings. It's pretty hit or miss. And there's some, as you can see here, that are doing a lot according to the strategic plan, and there are others doing few, if any. And the same with programs and interest group activities. There might be a lot with accessibility, as you can see here, or more with accessibility, but not so much other specific points in the plan. So very mixed, and there's another none. And even mission-based programming, which is part of the strategic plan. So based on that, the next question is, imagine that AAUW California practiced DEI just as you would want or like. What would that look like, sound like, and feel like? Okay, so wrap up your answer to that. So going back to national for a moment and the toolkit. So some branches, a few, just a few, are really making use of the toolkit, incorporating it into their programming. Others are referring to it. In other words, encouraging individual members to go to the toolkit and look things up and providing the links. And others just really aren't using it at all. They're aware it's there, but they're not using it in their branches. So based off of that, I would like you to journal about what the ideal AUW toolkit would be. It doesn't necessarily have to be online. What would the ideal AAUW toolkit look like and feel like, sound like, or what would it be? So wrap up your answer to that one. I have just a few more questions for us. And then we can have some time to share if you'd like to. The next question is, if you wrote a DEI strategic plan for your branch, and some of you have done this, as we know, but if you wrote a DEI strategic plan for your branch on your own, just what you wanted, what would it say? What would that DEI strategic plan say? And we'll take a few more minutes with this one, since it might be longer. So start wrapping that up. And the next question asks us to look outside of AAUW. What are some other organizations that you admire or you support or you belong to? And what can AAUW learn from them, especially in relation to DEI? So think of other organizations you really like or you support or belong to, and note down what you believe AAUW could learn from them in relation to DEI. Okay, wrap up your answer to that one. So the last two questions are what we will base our sharing on. So I want you now to go back through your answers for those 7 questions and either list, underline, highlight, circle, keywords and phrases that keep repeating themselves. Themes that keep coming up. Words or phrases that do. Okay, so sorry, I needed a little bit longer with that one. But wrap up your answer to that. And the last question for you to journal on is, what can you do as an individual member of AAUW to make those repeated themes, ideas, concepts that you noted, make them a reality? What can you do to make those ideals, those repeated ideas of importance? What can you do as an individual to make them a reality? And that's the last question. We'll take till about 7:50 with that, and then we will share some answers. Okay, so wrap up your answer there. And if you would like to share, what are some of the repeated words, keywords, phrases, and themes that kept coming up for you in doing this? Bonnie?
Yeah, I found that, first of all, being aware that there's different types of diversity. I think this is one of the things that's made it more interesting for our branch, is not focusing just on one thing, but trying to look at different types of diversity that are out there that we need to think about. We are in a branch in a very, very, very red um, county with very little diversity. So for us to talk about things like racial diversity, which they're fine at some point, it's not something that's going to happen in our branch particularly. So, oh, now my dog's going to bark. Great. Anyway, so I think that's one thing that's important. The other thing is, what kept coming up with was, and especially on the national level, I found that when I first started with the DEI position, I went to the national level, and I found it to be, even though there's a lot of really good information about, different types of, words and things we should, definitions and all that sort of thing. A lot of the things in the toolkit are very complicated and very scary when you're first starting out. And they are almost like, have this workshop that's almost on a professional level. And I found that to be just really disconcerting. And I think that if the national was a little less complicated and a little less hard to get through, there might be more people using it. So that, and just constant communication with our members, and not on a really heavy duty level. Some of it is things just like, what are some holidays that you may not think about? Or what are some, trying to do some different things that are not so divisive, that are much more inclusive, and things you may want to think about that you don't know. So anyway, that's just some of the things that I came up with.
And Melinda?
Can you hear me even though you can't see me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. So I feel that in our branch, we have probably 8 general meetings throughout the year, and probably 6 of them are sort of preset. It's like meetings we do every single year. September is Tech Trek, and October is probably a political thing with voting coming up. And then we have a social gathering for the holidays, and then we have our authors forum in February, and the rest of the year there's a couple more preset things. We really don't have that many opportunities to bring in a program for a general meeting that has to do with DEI. And I think that our branch needs to incorporate, I would like to see more DEI specific topics brought up in our general meetings that can apply to our general membership, or even just a section. If there's a movie or something that can be shown in a small house setting, or make it a general meeting. But I just don't feel that our branch is necessarily incorporating DEI in their programs. And so I'm hoping that, I don't know what the solution is, because as I said, things are kind of preset with us, but that was one thing that came up in my notes, is to incorporate DEI more in programs. And the other idea that, there's resources out there to explain what is DEI. And I'm thinking to take it a step further into why it's important to incorporate DEI. If we can explain to people, and we're all college educated people, so it's we're talking to the choir here, but if we can somehow um, explain why DEI should be involved in our workplace and our organizations and that kind of thing, instead of seeing all these companies that are now dropping them all. But I listened to the podcast that the woman from the state, California, AAUW, Missy,
Missy
whatever.
Maseko,
Yes, she had a podcast that was suggested to watch, and she really kind of went into why it's important. You know, we live in a diverse world. Any kind of organization or workplace that you have, you're going to have diverse people that have different perspectives and this kind of thing. And we all have to learn to live together and that kind of thing. And it was really, I thought, pretty valuable. And it was sort of a different take on, instead of the mechanics of what is DEI and little activities to explain it, it was more of a philosophical level of, you know, these are concepts that we're going to have to grasp as we, you know, have more global interaction with people and that kind of thing. So my comment that I wrote down was that in addition to explaining what DEI is why we have DEI. That's it.
All right, very good. And we can keep discussing these. I hope we will in future meetings. And by the way, I didn't ask you to put your branch names in your by your Zoom names. So if you'd like to do that, please do. You don't have to. But let's move on to that last question in our last few minutes. What ideas did you have, if you're willing to share, for making these things a reality for your branch? For making the your repeated desires, wants for DEI or needs for DEI. What did you write for how you as an individual member can make that a reality? Joanne?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the whole concept of DEI. And I think we might all agree, based on our membership and people join, women join, men join, based on our mission statement. And so we're a fairly small branch with about 130 members. And we're lucky if we get 30 members to programs. We have, our members are aging, and you know, our challenge is trying to get younger people. But nonetheless, when it comes to, let's say, programming or discussing DEI, you know, I wouldn't want it to come across as sort of trying to educate or lecture our members about what DEI is. If I were to ask our members individually, you know, do you feel DEI is important? I think people would say yes. You know, that's the whole reason why we belong to the organization we belong to. And, you know, I've had to deal with this a lot, even in my career. I was in human resource management for my career. And so, you know, I think the difficulty that other organizations and individuals have is really just trying to get across the concept. You know, I was thinking more along the line of programming, and not so much that the topic is out, you know, in your face that, oh, this is a DEI program.
Yeah.
But I think that there are topics that we can present that talk about individuals' challenges in their careers, how they overcame them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of my thoughts, and I have some ideas of some programming for our branch that I'd like to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here tonight and sharing. One more person for now. You want to share your answer to that last question? What you can do as an individual branch member to make your DEI themes a reality?
I'd like to say, if I may, that I'm not really part of your group, but thanks for the I saw that anyone is invited. So I came along because I'm the program VP for the San Jose branch. And we had a program on Saturday, and over 70 people attended. And we were very pleased with that because that's the first time that's happened. It was a wellness, we had a neurosurgeon presenting, and maybe that's why, the topic was very interesting. But one of the things I wanted to do was, I find that DEI is a very complicated topic, and it had just what Joanne was just saying. You really have to understand what it is, why you, you're what you want to accomplish, and why you're actually doing DEI. So in the future, I would like to be able to have a program that incorporates the DEI strategic plan, which I have to say I don't recall what's in there. Maybe because I don't think we have a DEI rep in our branch. I didn't see our branch show up on the list that you gave. What, right? Am I correct?
I don't believe you're on there.
Right. So, I think it's something that we probably can try to focus on, because I do believe that DEI is important and we need to try to incorporate it into our lives, because it will just make all of us happier, and
Yes.
and it's just the way of life. We're all here to live in peace. So
Amen. Yep.
yeah. So that's my thought. So that was what I was repeating, how to implement the ideas into our programs, have a plan to attack each objective that's listed. Um, yeah, read up the DI strategic plan and implement as much as I can with my team, with my committee.
And
Excellent.
can I just add something real quick?
Mhm.
We've found that in our branch, if you really think about it, there's an awful lot that can be, if you don't talk about it behind, that can be considered DEI. I mean, even the state strategic plan talks about like financial literacy. We're doing a meeting in March, and we're kind of considering that a DEI meeting. So it's, you have to kind of be a little creative, but I don't think it always has to do with a racial issue or, strictly diversity. There's a lot out there that you can incorporate.
Okay.
So Bonnie, may I just also add that there's always the confusion about diversity meaning just race and
Right, exactly.
everything. I agree with you. It's not, and that's what I'm discovering. It's
Yeah,
not just about, say, Black people or white people, or
right,
about genders. So we do need to do better. In our branch, we just have 2 members who are male, I think. So for example, right?
yeah,
So, we need to do better because they have to help us. They have to support us. So we can't just ignore and just have one gender. That's
right,
one thing.
right.
So
I mean, there's so much there,
there's,
accessibility, there's so many different
yes,
things.
so many things
Yeah,
to, not just race. So
right.
I agree with you.
Juliana had her hand up and then Carmen. Juliana, did you want to say something?
Hi, I'm sorry. Thank you for allowing me to join. I am the DEI rep of Laguna Beach AAUW, and not new to AAUW at all. I've been a member for many years, but I'd say about 6 or 7 months now with Laguna Beach. I work for a university, and common themes with my reflection tonight goes back to university partnership, visibility, getting out of the comfort zone, which so many civic groups are in. And when I think of diversity, of course you think of race, but you have to think of age, right? And gender. And we need to think about building a robust future for AAUW. And that means having equity in views. We need to be out in communities. We need to create an AAUW that's reflective of the communities in which we serve. And in doing so, it means for us to get outside of our comfort zones and to go into those areas where we're not usually at And I love the fact that somebody tonight shared a gathering involving a neurologist, or maybe that's what we need to do, bring in really broad spectrum gatherings with expert leaders that can talk about different aspects and bring the community together and then share the mission of AAUW. But I know our chapter, we're looking at succession plans. We're looking about the future. And there's so much work to do in every single civic group. I feel like wherever I'm involved at, it's the same kind of concern. What is the next generation, and where are they to lead us, to the future? So, real quickly, what I think some of the things that would help. I am guilty for not. I've gone into the toolkit when I first started, and things have just gotten so busy. We're partnering with University California, Irvine. That's where I work, and we're going to be doing a program in which we work with the alumni and our students in AAUW, and we're putting on a film screening and a panel discussion. I just wanted to share this because look at the multi-generations that are there, right? You have our students coming up that hopefully will be inspired to start a chapter on campus. We have our young alumni, brand new professionals in the community that can really help lead us into the future for AAUW. And then, of course, our current members that are just steeped in tradition and history and just so much experience. They're just an amazing group of women in Laguna Beach. What would be helpful? Maybe a speakers bureau, maybe some experts from universities across the country, from all of ours. I can certainly add a few faculty members from California into the mix that would be willing to pop on to some of our meetings just nationwide to really serve in that space of DEI or equity that are true experts in that area. So those are my thoughts, but thank you for allowing me to be here.
Oh, of course. It's not about allowing everyone can be here. We're not closing these meetings because I don't think DEI should be limited to just the DEI coordinators. That would not be very inclusive. So, Carmen, you had something to share.
I did want to share something. I think when the comment was made about DEI not being just about race, I just wanted to say, I think there's a perception at least in the United States, that it is about race because the people that you most often see at the forefront are people of color. And yet there are so many other people who also benefit from having an inclusive environment.
Right.
And what we need are those people as well to walk shoulder to shoulder with other people of color, so that the perception is that this involves all kinds of people, not just those of color. There are so many people who have benefited from the doors being opened over the years, but very often they're not willing to speak with us as one voice. And so that's something I think would help.
Yes. Yes. I don't want to keep us on any longer, given that it's 8 after the hour. I really appreciate you journaling, sharing what you journaled. If you'd like to do more of this, we can, or if you want more of an opportunity to share, we could start talking some more about the how. I know that's been a big part of it. And how do we do this? And we could start talking about specific ways, which has been ongoing. I
Lata,
know that,
there's someone in the chat, Melinda. She's asking, can you hear me? So I don't know if she's been trying to.
Oh,
oh,
that was at the very beginning.
That was at the
Oh, I'm
beginning.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks for noticing.
I just
I just,
saw the chat.
I just put something in the chat, which is probably why you got a notification, because what, actually what Juliana was saying reminded me of it. I'm sorry, is it Juliana or Juliana?
Either is fine. Juliana's fine.
Okay. Thank you. So, what you said reminded me of something that Pat shared with me a couple of weeks ago, that her branch did, and it was a reflection activity they did at the branch level. So if you liked today's activity, if you think your branch members should also do something similar related to DEI, I have attached in the chat, it's a PDF document. You'll have to click on it to open it and then download and save it to your computer. But that is an activity that that Pat shared. Thank you, Pat. And that was successful in her branch. And so you might consider it for yours, related to DEI.
We do something like a reflective thing at several meetings. That was our first one. And in fact, every month we try and do some kind of a DEI. In March, for example, I'm not doing anything at a general meeting or at a branch meeting, but we are partnering with the local library to sponsor their Reel to Reel night during Women's History Month, and it's going to be on Helen Keller. And also we are meeting at my house to discuss a book that a team selected. It wasn't what I would have selected for DEI, but it's called The Last Chinese Chef. But we are focusing totally on the cultural implications of food and how it represents different characteristics of a culture. And then we're going to look at other ethnic groups as well.
Thank you, Joanne. Joanne had to leave.
And we just did one on when we were talking about this idea of only race and gender. I presented at the last meeting. It was called a privilege wheel. We did the privilege walk, but instead of walking it, we did it at our tables, just putting our hands on the table and then interacting. But the privilege wheel showed all the different, like housing, disability, transportation, all the different things that come into diversity and accessibility. So little pieces at a time like that.
No, that's great. Those are all great activities. And I've done them with various groups and contexts. I think, right, you know, what I keep asking and bringing up and that we can keep discussing is how do we take that piece, kind of like Joanne was saying earlier, and take it beyond the education, right, into something that's truly transformative for our branches, because as we know, part of that why is if we don't do this, we're not going to survive, right? We're not going to survive as I don't, at the branch level or at any level as an organization. And this is partly what we're going to address at the state meeting as well. But that's the why as an organization. The larger why, that speaks to what you were saying, Melinda, and I'm sure Missy too, and Missy does DEI work, has her DEI business as well, is, you know, I recently learned, I probably shared here before, but I think it's worth repeating. Generation Z, which is my children's generation, right? They're born at the tail end of it, and then at the beginning of Gen Alpha, whatever you count that as. But the Annie E. Casey Foundation, right? A very reputable source, found that nearly 50% of Generation Z has at least one parent of color.
Wow.
And even when I told my own students at Cal Poly SLO, who are all Generation Z, when I initially told them this, they didn't believe me. They were surprised. But this is what the Annie Casey Foundation is saying, and it's probably even more for Gen Alpha. So yes, diversity is more than just race, and the racial diversity could flow from other types of diversity. If we look at age, and other aspects of diversity, but this is our future. You were asking me for what's the future? Who is our future? Juliana, you were asking, that's our future. And that's the group that we need to lead the way. But we need to give them the opportunities, right, to lead for our organization and for our own organization's health and survival. So a little bit more about the why. And I understand it's 15 minutes after the hour. I'm going to stop recording.